Live from the heart of Baylor Bear Country, the most comprehensive pregame coverage. This is Game Day Live, powered by Sikkim 365 and KWTX News 10.
And good morning on it's in the afternoon on this Saturday. It's the next to the last weekend of the college football regular season. Conference championships up for grabs. Some have maybe put themselves in pretty good position, but there are the ones with divisions, a lot to do. Baylor just trying to find some sort of glimmer of hope, and they play on the road against TCU up in Fort Worth. Darby Brown will join us momentarily. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. And you know, we've been over this, like Craig one time said earlier this year, it's the definition of insanity, watching what Baylor has done over and over and over again, and it's pretty much the same thing. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, we've all pretty much thought the TCU will win. If this doesn't get at least Baylor juiced up somewhat, they're not a long road trip. It's up the I-35 into Fort Worth. But do you see anything whatsoever that gives you a chance, or you think Baylor can win this game?
What I see is that TCU is below average. So that's what makes me think that Baylor's got a better chance in this one than the most, because TCU's not been great at all. But you know, there's nothing I've seen from Baylor that makes me think that they're going to win most of the games that they play. So, you know, it's just tough to put your finger on. This has been such a slog of a season for them. But look, TCU, they're up against it. Baylor wins this game, you know, they can kind of be, look, if we can't be bowl eligible, then neither can you, could be the motivation. I don't know, but if they don't get up and get excited for this one, which is against your big rival, then there is no gas in the tank.
I don't think that getting up for the game has been the problem here lately. I think they're just not a good team. I don't think it was a matter of they weren't up for Kansas State. I think they were up for Kansas State. I think they just weren't very good, and Kansas State swarmed them and blew them out early, and they had no ability to recover. I think there are games earlier in the year where you could say, yeah, well, the energy's not there, but I think the energy thing, when you hear that mentioned now, is kind of lazy, actually. Yep. I think it's people who just fall back on that because they don't, I guess, just want to point out that, no, they're just not a really good team. Like, it's really that simple. I think that Baylor's got a chance to win this game. I think they're in a position to make this a competitive game. I don't think TCU's anything special. I don't think anybody covering TCU thinks they're anything special. So, I mean, to me, it's a matter of a team that might be slightly better than the other one who's also at home. But in terms of momentum, neither one has any. In terms of, you know, big grand aspirations, neither one has any. And so, yeah, TCU's got the bowl possibility that's still out there, to Paul's point, that Baylor can quash today, because TCU needs both of these games. So, yeah, you're at your rival's place. The last time you were there, you put on one of the worst bowl performances, or you had one of the hardest games to watch bowl-wise probably in your school's history. There was not much of a lower feeling than leaving Amon Carter Stadium at the end of last year in a freezing cold storm and having gotten whooped by Air Force. So between the last showing there, between the fact that you're on the road where apparently you are easier motivated, or at least you play a little bit sharper, and the fact that this is a team that's beatable and it's your rival, I think there's a lot of ingredients for Baylor to be able to get in this game and play really hard and play really well.
One Big 12 game underway, and we're going to go to Darby Brown, Oklahoma, leading BYU. That game late in the first half. OU was down inside the BYU 10, settled for a field goal, leading 17-14 over the Cougars with 2:27 left in the first half. We'll get to some other, the schedule, rest of the day, and also some top 25 games in a moment. But we go to Darby Brown. She travels all over the country, and Chad Bothering too. But Darby in Fort Worth at Amon Carter Stadium. Darby, we asked you this question a lot, and I know you get, oh, Lord, here we go again. But just your thoughts from the week of what we saw, what we've heard, and your thoughts about Baylor, TCU, and the rivalry and the rivalry between these two schools.
Well, let me tell you, the first thought arriving at the stadium today was just, you know, thinking back at the last time we were here,
yep.
I was like a whole other world. We were in like an Arctic tundra, freezing. And as Craig said, you know, one of the lower moments really for Baylor football. And so I think coming in here, I just saw Dave Aranda walk by me kind of making a lap around the stadium. And you wonder if he's kind of thinking back on that game as well. You know, obviously it's a beautiful sunny day here, and they have, you know, a chance to put a bright spot on a really tough season. And so I think that's what this game is. And, it is a rivalry game. There is some extra juice that comes with that period. There's also some wacky things. I mean, you think back about last year, TCU was having a season, their best season ever, and Baylor almost beat them in Waco. And so crazy things can happen, both teams having down years. I think that this is just one thing that Baylor players could say, hey, at least we beat TCU. At least we did that. At least we kept them out of a bowl game. So that's what you got to get up for today, and we'll see if they can rise to that challenge.
Darby, do you get this sense, or like having been, press conferences and, team stuff and, well, let me ask you this again. Is there tension around the team knowing that, they might be playing for their coaches' jobs in the next couple weeks?
I think there has to be. I think that, it's not something that's being talked about, but I mean, we all have social media. There's been some weird tweets from players this week, which I have to say, that's one thing that Baylor's actually done pretty well this year. I think back on previous years that have been maybe down years and players are posting weird things and kind of digging at the team, digging at the program. They've really been pretty good about that. And I do feel like that's starting to show a little bit as maybe players are looking elsewhere or things like that. But yeah, I mean, Dave Aranda said it himself this week. When it's this time of year, coaches' jobs are on the line. It's going to take a bit of a turn as to what we're playing for. What do we need to do to try to keep this thing going? And, obviously, I don't know how many Baylor fans want to keep this thing going in this direction, obviously. But I think that as far as the players, they have to take pride in what they're trying to do. And as you mentioned, kind of save Coach Aranda and what the program looks like right now.
Darby, I mean, you're down there closer than we are normally. I mean, I've never gotten the sense this team has really quit. Have you? I mean, in terms of just any moments in games, even against Kansas State, it still seems like they're playing hard and they're giving it all. It doesn't seem like, with as many problems they have, that one of them's not the effort side of things. And even the energy thing, I feel like, can kind of get blown out of proportion just within the losing. What are your thoughts on just what you've seen sort of up close and personal?
Yeah, I don't think it's been a matter of not having energy recently. And I do think that, when you look at these players, like you mentioned, being up close, you can tell they're still locked in. They're still fighting and they still care. I mean, I think that's something a lot of people forget about is that these players, they want to win more than anybody, right? And you can see it that they're not quitting, even though it's just not showing up on the field and their performance just isn't up to standard and it isn't where it should be right now. But no, there's no quit. I think that we're going to see a team that's locked in. I think, there's players that have been bright spots this year and hopefully they can show the fans, these last couple games a bit more of their talents and what they can do. And hopefully that's, going to be a sign of the future and not just what's entering the transfer portal, which is a whole, a thing that happens this time of year as well.
You mentioned some of the social media. Garrett, do you have the Caden Jenkins tweet from earlier today? Caden Jenkins has been out there the last 2 or 3 days saying, I have to do what's best for my family, take care of them, respect my decision. And he put this out just a little bit ago, Sick 'em Bears. It sounds like, Darby, and I know you heard a little bit about this yesterday, that Baylor has revamped and or revitalized or added to their NIL program, and I think that had part to do with it. Your thoughts about how much of an oomph can that possibly give this, not this team today, but the program in general?
It's huge. I mean, we've heard all year how they're playing these younger players. And I think a lot of people wonder, well, why? Why are you playing this many younger players? Where's the juniors? Where's the upperclassmen? And that is kind of a major problem. But the plus side could be that these younger players have gotten a lot of experience. And Caden Jenkins, obviously a huge bright spot, big upside, could have a really bright future. And obviously Baylor fans would want to see him stay here. So if they can figure out that NIL stuff, if they can figure out a way to keep some of these younger players, I do think they're going to see that pay off in the future. And obviously that would be huge. That would kind of make this season, it was a down year, look at it as a rebuilding year, but it could actually be a rebuilding year with these younger players actually getting back on campus. So NIL is a huge thing and Baylor needed to make some big strides. So hopefully that is what has happened in order to keep this program in a competitive place.
I'm surprised you just, for kicks and grins, you didn't wear like a parka from the last time you mentioned. It looks like an absolutely just picture-perfect day today in Fort Worth.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I'm in a tank top right now. It's November. The Arizona girl in me loves that. So it's awesome. But yeah, no, it's going to be a beautiful day. And so there's no, any of the stuff that was out of their control the last time where they could not handle those conditions. There's no conditions right now. This is perfect. So that is definitely going to be good for the fans at the minimum today that it is a great, beautiful Saturday here in Fort Worth.
Darby, thank you always for being a part of our pregame. We'll speak with you again a little bit later on in the show. She said she saw Dave Aranda making the walk around the stadium. Baylor and TCU at 2:30 at Amon Carter Stadium. And we also know we're going to have this in the next segment or two, the history of these two. 119th meeting. We'll get that later. But one of the things, Paul, Craig, when was the last time that Baylor beat TCU when they were the underdog? And I know there's been a couple of years where it's been close, but when was the last time you could remember when they beat TCU as the underdog?
The last time they beat TCU, as far as I remember, was in 2019, and I don't think they were the underdog that day. And then before that, there was a stretch too. So I'm not sure
because
when that was.
If you go back to 2011, maybe. Remember that was the year after TCU had crushed them in Fort Worth. Way to go, Big 12. Way to go, Big 12, as they were leaving the field, and kind of some fans got into it with Kaz Kazadi and a few of the assistant coaches. But this is a team that has owned them. And we'll have the stats on that in the next segment, but they have owned them. And Craig, I don't know what to say about it. Sometimes maybe just TCU. That's sometimes rivalries are one-sided over maybe a decade or two or three.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything scientific to break down. I just think TCU's been a better program for a while now, and they have been a better team in a lot of these matchups. Really that simple. There's been games where Baylor should have probably won that they didn't, but TCU's had an ability for going on a decade plus now of winning the games they're supposed to and winning most of the games they're not supposed to. And Baylor, on the other hand, got up for 61-58, and people are still crowing about 61-58, and since 61-58, they've won exactly one game. So, I still hear that. I still see that. That'll always be a rallying cry and all that, but TCU's had like 7 games in that time frame that have all been memorable for one reason or another, including last year's with the walk-off field goal. So I don't know, outside of just they've had more of a steadier time in terms of they didn't have a big scandal that hit right in the heat of that rivalry, and they even still fell back a little bit because I think they had their own problems going on that they just got overshadowed a little bit, and they had to deal with those. And Baylor's just was so giant that it completely turned over the program. I mean, you lost your head coach, you lost several players, you lost half a recruiting class, you lost this and you lost that. TCU never went through that, so they've really had no excuse to fall back all that much. Baylor's had at least reasons why that's happened. But I just think TCU's been a better program. They've been steadier. They haven't had all the coaching changes, and they've had the ability at the end of games to be clutch, whereas Baylor has either not performed up to snuff or, has not had that killer instinct, that finishing ability. So give them credit. I don't know what you chalk it up to other than just in some cases the fact that they weren't completely disrupted. But, yeah, that's something that needs to change. And Dave Aranda wasn't able to change the winning at home. That was something that was a big bugaboo, and still is, that the fact that they can't win a home game other than Long Island this year. They've got another crack at it next week that we can get to when we cross that bridge when we get there. But at best, they're going to have 1-2 home games. Well, another thing that you need to change is your history against TCU, and he hasn't beat them yet. So, that's something that is also on the to-do list, and that'd be a big day, or it'd be a big thing to do, be able to do that today.
All right, when we come back, the history between these two. Garrett Ross around the corner with the keys to the game. We will hear from 2 former Baylor players in J.J. Joe and also Ricky Thompson, Stephen Johnson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram from the TCU perspective, and a lot more. We'll update the score, some top 25 games going on, and, of course, we'll keep an eye on that Oklahoma game at BYU. This is 365 Sports and Game Day Live on the CW.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Central Texas Plumbing Solutions, and Centex Roof Systems.
Hi, my name is Randy Crook. I'm the president of Waco Goodfellas. Our organization strives to ensure that every kid has a chance to believe in Santa Claus. Over the last 30 years, we've touched the lives of over 5,000 children, each one leaving away with a gift, a smile, and the belief that kindness still exists. This year, we're hoping to raise $10,000 to deliver a piece of Christmas to hundreds of homes across Waco, not only to fill the hearts of the kids, but the family as a whole.
At Dr. Smiley, you're always our top priority. Dr. Lee, Dr. Lim, and the friendly staff are committed to delivering exceptional and professional care in general, family, cosmetic, and emergency dental services. Get $2,699 implant, abutment, crown, 3D CBCT scan, and consultation with IV sedation available. Dr. Smiley accepts Medicaid and most dental insurance. Call Dr. Smiley today at 254-732-2606 and book your appointment now.
Are you getting no sleep? Is your mattress too hard? Need a better mattress and don't know where to turn? Look no further than Waco Mattress Center. We have over 50 mattresses you can choose from, like Stearns & Foster, Tempur-Pedic, and Sealy. Don't worry, we don't want you to try them all, and we won't confuse you with any misleading gimmicks or fine print. So forget those big box mattress stores and visit us at Waco Mattress Center. I'm Carol Weaver. Thank you for your business and keeping it local.
We sure do appreciate your time here with our Game Day Live on the CW and also 365 Sports. Here is a few graphics on the history of this rivalry's 119th meeting. TCU leads 58-53-7. That, of course, turned the corner in the last decade. The longest series between two schools in the state of Texas. Baylor and TCU, first time they met was in 1899. They scoreless tie. Last time they met was last year at McLean Stadium. The drive, Duggan getting them in field goal position, walk off with a field goal to win it, their magical year. TCU has won 11 of the last 15, 7 of the last 8 times these two teams have met. And they have both had 8-game winning streaks in the history. It was TCU in the mid-60s through 71. Baylor 10 years later, mid-70s to 1981. They both won 8 straight. 44 games. 44 games have been decided by 7 points or less, including the 7 ties. Now, this is an interesting note that I didn't know much about. 1899 until 1910, they actually played 24 consecutive games in Waco. I did know that. TCU used to be located in the city of Waco. Baylor during that time was 12-8-4. Between 1899 and 1910, they actually played 3 times, 6 different years.
Yeah, there weren't that many teams that played football back in those days, and travel was difficult because you had to, get on a train or like a buggy. I don't know, but mostly train. Like you had to do that. It wasn't like you had like big, gigantic buses, so you had to get on a train to go places, and that would be expensive, even for a football team that in the early part of the century was maybe at max 20 people. So there wasn't, everybody played both ways. There were a couple backups here and there, but, back in those days, like, you didn't have, 85 scholarships. There were a lot of people who probably came and started playing football just because they're like, hey, you wanna?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sure. Why not do anything else? So they came and did that. But yeah, that's pretty strange that, like, if you think back to how it used to be where you'd play like divisional opponents multiple times like they do in the NFL now.
Yeah, it's not a lot of favorable numbers going with the rivalry here of late for Baylor. I'll add another one, 3 straight games they've lost to a different head coach. They've lost to Gary Patterson, Jerry Kill, and Sonny Dykes in the last 3 meetings. So that's not anything that probably crosses minds. There's not anything all that great. I think it just speaks to the dominance of TCU, though, here lately where, like, everything's gone their way. And so, yeah, they've had 3 different head coaches coaching this game the last 3 years. They've won every single one of them. But since 2014, since 61-58, as we said, it's been kind of the same story of just a different avenue to heartbreak. And when Baylor's been bad and TCU was good, they blew them out. When Baylor was pretty good and TCU was maybe on par, maybe even a little bit worse, they still found a way to win, except for in 2019. And, these last couple years, Dave Aranda's had a big opportunity, and you've lost by, 2 points and by 10 points, by 1 point last year and then by 2 points the year before. So he's lost by a total of 3 points these last 2 meetings. It's been brutal. And, today would not change your bowl outcome or, send you anywhere where this is a drastically different looking season. But man, it would sure just feel good to beat TCU for once, like that. Just for a Saturday, just to win a game that means something. That's not coming back from 3 scores down on the road against UCF or struggling with Cincinnati to eke that one out. Just to go out and just beat somebody, but beat somebody that I think people have respect for, but despise, and somebody that's that you should be competitive with, to go and get a win and ruin their bowl chances, I do think would be a big deal for a lot of different reasons.
No question about it. And you're right. A lot of 61-58. There was the Charlie Brewer 3 overtime win up in Amon Carter. Denzel Mims making a couple of spectacular plays. Charlie running over somebody at the goal line to score. It's just, but there's always been, third string quarterback beat Baylor in Waco at McLean Stadium. Jalen Reagor had his big moment in Waco too at McLean Stadium. There was the game when Baylor had the game. Chris Johnson was the quarterback playing with the third string quarterback, and they had the 14-0 lead. He got hit. He fumbled near midfield. TCU ran it back. Next thing you know, they end up winning that game. There's been a lot of bizarre things that have happened over the years. Paul, what's your one? Is it 61-58? Which one is the one, if you think about the rivalry, that you remember the most?
I think it's a tie between 61-58 and that game, the Chris Johnson game you talked about. That was in the worst weather possibly imaginable.
Monsoon pouring down.
And it was 40 degrees at its highest. It was just terrible. And I think it's those two. 61-58 though was something else, because Baylor had to, even though they could score fast, the way that game ended, they kind of had to, there was one of those things where they had to, take every exit the right way. It wasn't like there was no shortcut to it. You have to go here, 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 and here, and everything that they needed to happen happened for them at the end of that game and won it. So that was the one that sticks out the most to me. Now, there's a couple of other ones, like Trevon Boykin, where everybody thought, Baylor's going to win this one.
At Old Floyd Casey Stadium.
Nobody's seen this Trevon Boykin kid, and he had the game of his life, or he played really poorly the week before and then played the game of his life. Jalen Reagor made 3 good plays an entire game and beat Baylor one year, and that was the only 3 good plays in the entire game for either side. And so it was just, it's a weird rivalry.
Yeah, it's a weird rivalry. TCU's just over the last decade. I mean, that's the thing. I don't like, part of it's hard to think about because it just makes me feel old of just how many games have flown by here in recent years. And you look back, and 61-58 is 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I just want everybody else out there to feel what I'm feeling right now. That 61-58 was 10 years ago, or I guess technically 9 years ago. But we're about to come up on the 10th year anniversary, and Baylor's won 1 game since then against TCU. I mean, think about that.
And that was a triple overtime game, right?
Yeah, think about that. So, no, I mean, yeah, the biggest memory would be 61-58, but I kind of don't like saying that at this point because it sounds a little lame, honestly, when that's the only, 2 wins that you've had is that triple overtime and that game. And, that game was awesome, and I'll remember it for forever no matter what because I've never seen anything like it, and I doubt I ever see anything like it again. I've seen comebacks, but not to that extent, not when somebody was that down and out, and then to do it in the fashion that they did with Shock Linwood and Corey Coleman and all those guys. I don't know I don't think I'll ever see anything like that again. But yeah, that is the memory that sticks out. It's just a little bit not as fun to think about because you realize, man, you're kind of clinging on to something that was a really long time ago, And so, that was special. But there is a little bit of an asterisk there. But that one will always reign supreme as one of the coolest memories or coolest games that I've seen in person.
There were a couple of games last night. Jeff Traylor, whose name is swirled around, being interviewed at A&M. Possibility if whatever happens with Baylor or Houston as one of the candidates, if in fact that occurs. Beating UCF last night and beating them soundly after falling behind 7-0 and 14-7. Frank Harris was spectacular. In his last home game at the Alamo Dome, I sent Jeff a text earlier today. He goes, I'm so happy for the 18 seniors. They put us in a heck of a ride. They beat the Bulls. And then late Last night, Cam Ward and Washington State could have scored 80. They beat Dion in Colorado 56-14. Shador went out. Colorado's a mess after the spectacular month of late August, early September, and they are now the worst team in the Pac-12 as far as the standings.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of South Florida, I don't know exactly the full story, but Gary Bohannon went off to South Florida after the quarterback decision was made a couple years ago, and I don't know, I guess he got hurt. I haven't really been keeping track with his career, but he got hurt, and so I think he's all out of eligibility at this point. So that was the situation last year. He won that job, got hurt. This year, I guess, back in Tampa and got hurt again, and I just hate that for him, but that's what I think of when I think of South Florida, and it's been a rough ride at times for them. And last night, certainly, nice win there for UTSA, who's got to see the writing on the wall a little bit with Jeff Traylor. Nothing official with A&M, though. I mean, they're going to do their interview process, but that was a nice win for them at the Alamo Dome, and a big send-off for Frank Harris, who's very deserving after the career that he's carved out there. Joshua Cephas, another great player for UTSA. But, that was a fun game until it wasn't, where it was just kind of like almost like – I guess it felt like a big send-off in kind of a way for Frank Harris and others, and then maybe Jeff Traylor too. Like, kind of had that, but not for sure. And then as far as Colorado and Washington State, I mean, Colorado, it was a fun story at the beginning of the year. It was exciting, it was fresh, it was new, and then reality set in between injuries, between just reality of where they are as a football team in comparison to, other teams on this level. They didn't have the lines to compete. They didn't have the defense. They had a couple of really good players and some other talented guys, but not enough of a full package to keep that thing sustainable for the long haul. And so, Colorado, the next time we see them, I guess, got another game left, but they're going to start gearing up for Big 12 play now. Yeah. And whatever that's going to look like. So, we're going to see Deion up close and personal in a new way starting, after this season wraps up and the offseason begins. But they got a lot of work to do to get ready for next season, because you've got some talented guys, but you need more than just a few talented guys. You need a lot more than that, and that was evident last night against a team built like Washington State is.
I heard a stat today on the way over to the studio. Shedeur has been sacked 52 times, the most by any college quarterback in America so far this year, and that's one of the things that I'm sure that the transfer portal, et cetera, is something that Deion and his staff will try, but they are in an absolute free fall. Washington State was too, until that win. Oklahoma, BYU, 17 apiece at halftime. Top 25 games. Michigan has a fumble return for a touchdown. They blocked a punt for a safety. 23-10 at halftime against Maryland. Alabama. This is one of those weekends the SEC takes the cushy home games against nobodies. They had forever and ever, nobody really said much about it, but starting to see that more in the last few weeks. Alabama leads Chattanooga 38-10. Miami, Louisville, in a game that has implications in the ACC championship game. 21-20 Hurricanes lead the Cardinals at halftime.
I think part of the thing with the SEC is not only do you play one less conference game than everybody, but you also have a freebie at the end of the year. So it's like a double whammy. And you can say, well, we play them in week 2. What's the difference? Well, the difference is at the end of the year, and everybody's playing like big-time high-pressure games, and the week before the end of the season, you're playing absolute layups. Yeah. And you're playing one less conference game. Well, it just means more. It's harder here. So you can't have everything, though. So you not only do you play one less game, but then you also have the alley-oop at the end of the year. So that seems like more of just it's harder over here, so we get a couple of different, mulligans as it pertains to the schedule versus others. But, that's a never-ending argument. I get there's still, play 8 conference games. You still have as tougher schedule than those playing 9. But you add in that cupcake at the end, and it's like, that's really massaging things, when you think about it.
It is, and it's one of those things where it's an argument that the haves are making, and you're like, well, I mean, what else do you, what do you want, do you want us to lay out a nice pillow for you at halftime?
You're not allowed to be criticized. A lot of other teams play those games in September and get criticized for them in the SEC because they're better across the board. And again, they have all the national titles. They stick one of those in late November, and nobody says too much. A&M leads Abilene Christian early third quarter. They just kicked off 17-7 Aggies.
I am curious to see over the first several years of the 12-team playoff and the way that television ratings have become such a more important thing, or big television broadcasts, especially the week before Thanksgiving. When the other thing this does is you're kind of giving away some of your opportunity to get people really excited for the postseason, because if you're just kind of a fan of a school that's not in it, well, hey, I want to watch Alabama today. I haven't gotten to see them this year. They're supposed to be a good team, and they're just boat racing Chattanooga. Like, well, thanks for tuning in, but this is not really what you want to see.
All right, so those are the games in the SEC, in the top 25. Some of them also, a couple of others that I mentioned. The NC State, the Louisville-Miami game with huge implications because Louisville's trying to get to the ACC championship game. We'll see if that happens, but we'll look at the overall schedule later in the show. Coming up, Garrett Ross, the keys to the game. The 119th meeting between TCU and Baylor at Amon Carter Stadium, and this is Game Day Live.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, 3 Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
What up, everybody? Welcome back into Game Day Live. I'm Garrett Ross with today's Keys to the Game presented by Richard Carr Motors. Our first key to today's game is pretty simple. Catch the football. While that shouldn't be a problem, especially for wide receivers, it was a glaring issue last week for Baylor as they fell to the Wildcats up in Manhattan. Monterey Baldwin especially, he should have been your leading receiver, the guy that you were leaning on with Keytron Jackson out. And he had 1 reception on 9 attempts. And that 1 reception, while it was a touchdown, it was pretty much for nothing as the game was already out of hands. Throughout the course of the game, you had a lot of drops by other receivers as well that were in the game. Drake Dabney was really the safety blanket when it came to Blake Shapen and the passing attack. But it was just real inconsistent throughout the course of the game. And that's something that when you're a struggling football team in general, you can't have your receivers dropping the balls left and right. There are already a limited amount of time for Blake Shapen in the pocket. The rushing attack has been kind of hit or miss all year long. And when you really need your playmakers to make plays on the outside, you can't afford them to drop the ball and make these drives go 3 and out and stall, which has been unfortunately a regular occurrence for Baylor throughout the course of the year. Now, when you come into this game against TCU, you should have Keytron Jackson back coming off that injury he suffered a couple of weeks ago. but he hasn't had the reps in practice. So how is that going to affect and how is that going to transition into the game? I think while he's out there on the field, TCU's definitely going to have to account for him, which should open up things for Monterey Baldwin not to have so much pressure on him. I think that's kind of what kind of went into last week, but still it's inexcusable to drop as many passes as the Baylor wide receiver corps did last week. Our second key to today's game is going to be rush for 100 yards. Now, I know that's kind of asking for a lot. That's a tall task for this team. But if you go and look at the 3 wins they've had, they've all eclipsed the century mark on the ground. And that's just something that Baylor struggled with. You go back last week against Kansas State, Dominic Richardson was the leading rusher. He had like 86 yards on the ground. But there was just nothing going after that. And you got Dawson Pendergrass, who has shown that he could be efficient in this wide zone scheme while other backs aren't able to. He did most of his damage last week through the air, which is, it's great to have that. But at the same time, you got to churn out yards on the ground. I know we keep mentioning Richard Reese, and I don't have an answer why the cat's not on the field. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. But at the same time, you got to get him. You've got to get Dom Richardson, who had the big game, Dawson Pendergrass. You got to feed the rock to these guys. And this offensive line has got to open up holes against TCU, who has been susceptible to allowing rushing yards on a massive amount by teams all season long. There is something there to work with. There is an avenue to take advantage of if you're Baylor, but you have got to get over 100 yards rushing in this game if you want to have a chance to come out of Fort Worth victorious. Our last key to the game, and I know I've beaten a dead horse with this one, but you've got to eliminate big plays. Like I've mentioned this a few times throughout the course of the year, and unfortunately, Baylor just hasn't been able to do it. And when you look at how TCU's coming into this game, their offensive coordinator, Kendall Browse, I feel like he's got something he's been waiting for a long time. I feel like he's going to be in his bag in this game. And you got Savion Williams on the outside, J.P. Richardson, Jared Wiley, who is a complete mismatch for this Baylor secondary. You've got to find a way to eliminate the big plays. It's going to be difficult. You need your young secondary to step up. We've seen Caden Jenkins do it over the course of the year. Devin Bobby has shown flashes as well. But your linebacking core, we've talked about this. They struggle with these crossing routes and hold and contain. They're going to have a big game in this matchup because I think TCU is going to throw everything they can at Baylor. And you've got to find a way to come up with big plays, force turnovers, and help that offense get not just force turnovers. We've seen if you go back to Houston, Baylor came away with 2 picks. But they ultimately came up empty-handed because you weren't able to convert anything with that on your offense and make points out of it. Now, we've seen in the past, Caden Jenkins, you had the scoop and score against UCF. If you pick the ball off or you are able to generate turnovers and eliminate those big plays, you've got to capitalize on it with points because Baylor has got to score touchdowns to keep pace with TCU. It's going to be a tall task, but this is a game that Baylor really has to win. It means a lot. It's a rivalry game. I'm not going to talk about that funky new name there. That's just laughable. But we'll just see how it goes. But I think Baylor has got to find a way to eliminate big plays, get off the field, and they're going to have a chance to compete with TCU. That's going to do it for today's Keys to the Game. We'll be back with more Game Day Live right after this.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
Home Place Interiors. From designer drapes to custom total installation, quality area rugs to a wide selection of floor covering, Home Place Interiors has you covered. With over 40 years of experience, you can trust John Proctor and his knowledgeable staff to help you with your next home project. Home Place Interiors, where we do business the old-fashioned way, on a handshake.
Shelley's business needs to be more efficient, and she heard hybrid meeting would help. She called Asbel Electronics, and we took her vision and created a space that was easy to use and maximized live interaction in the office while fully interacting with customers and remote workers. Pastor Dave wanted to live stream his Sunday services, so he called Asbel Electronics. We implemented technologies that brought the in-church experience to the living room while minimizing volunteers' workflow. Let us make your vision come true. Contact Asbel Electronics for all your professional audio-visual needs.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
You can trust the KWTX First Alert Weather Team.
Stephen Johnson, Fort Worth Star-Telegram. He's been one of our guys, in fact, a go-to guy for us in the coverage of TCU. They host Baylor tomorrow afternoon at 2:30, and he joins us on 365 Sports. Stephen, how much gas does TCU have left in their tank?
Yeah, to answer your question, it seems like they're fired up. They're fired up. They know how important this rivalry game is. TCU's obviously playing for a chance to make it to a bowl game. So I would say, based on what we saw last week against Texas, there's more fuel in the tank than you might expect considering the season they've had.
Steven, a couple years ago, Baylor played Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl, and Jeff Lebby was the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss, and I asked him at the press conference, was there any more sauce on this game because of their departure from Baylor? And he gave me the coach speakiest answer of all coach speaky times. I would have to assume that Kendall Briles feels similarly but may not say anything. Do you think there's a little extra, zip on the fastball for him this week?
Well, if you're a TCU fan, I think you would certainly hope so, considering the offense has been, I think, inconsistent at best is probably the word I would use. So, if there's any time to bust out anything you got left, anything in the tank that you haven't used already, now would be the time, especially considering his history. I don't think he was a big fan of how his father was handled. So I would imagine he's fired and motivated. We haven't had a chance to talk to him this week. But, yeah, this is definitely a game. I think will be even, Baylor's not a great team, but this is still a big game for Kendall Briles because you do not want to be a situation where TCU comes out and maybe only scores like 10 or so points. That will get this fan base really fired up even more than they have been all year.
Stephen, what have you thought about the play of Josh Hoover as the weeks have progressed since I think we talked to you last? We've seen a lot more of him, but also what's the status of Chandler Morris right now as well? I remember reading something last week about how he appeared to be getting closer, but can you kind of clarify that for us?
I'm pretty sure it'll be Josh Hoover the rest of the way.
Okay.
As of today, I'm expecting Chandler's career as a Horned Frog is probably over just because it's unfortunate the injury situation. But I think Josh has shown enough that they want to continue to get him these valuable reps, especially if they don't make a bowl game. This could be the last time or the last stretch where he could get those reps, get those in-game situations. So, but what I've seen from him is he's a young quarterback. There's been time he's had a turnover in every single game he's played in. So I think that's probably the biggest concern. The positive side is TCU was finally getting more chunk plays down the field because he's more aggressive than Chandler Morris. And it's shown more of a willingness, I think, to trying to stretch the field. And that's why you're starting to see Tavion Williams start to break out a little bit for the Horned Frogs. He was kind of the receiver you thought could kind of replace Quinn Johnson. That hasn't happened, but he's coming off a career game last week against Texas. So we'll see if that can kind of carry over again on Saturday against the Bears.
There was no way that Sonny Dykes saw what has happened back, let's say, during the offseason, entering the season, even though the Big 12 is all jumbled up. There's no way he saw this coming, is there?
No, not at all. I mean, you guys probably heard some of the same things we were hearing. They believe they had a good team this year. They believe that they did a good job of replacing some of the talent, and maybe they didn't have the same quality as last year, but they thought they had better numbers, more of a quantity approach. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we don't have a Quinn Johnson, but we signed 5 or 6 receivers in the portal last year to kind of help up for that. So I think they thought they would be contending a lot more than this. They had high expectations for defense. And the defense has been a disappointment, especially considering what's happened against all the quality competition they face. So this has been a surprise to Sonny Dykes, especially the way they've lost games, missing kicks, turning the ball over in the red zone. They're 124th in red zone offense. I don't think they could have predicted that coming into the season.
I was going to ask you about that. Is that just the change in offensive line and also quarterback as much as anything? Like, I know in the Tech game, they got into territory, but then Josh Hoover had an interception, right? Or like, what do you attribute that to, that lack of success in the red zone? Because that's alarming to be that low.
Man, there are so many things. I think let's start with the O-line. They don't trust the O-line, I think, in those 3rd and 2s, those 2nd and goals from the 3-yard line. And just the interior of the offensive line, I think, has not shown the ability to continue to win those, physical matchups when you're trying to run the ball and punch it in. The quarterbacks, Josh Hoover and Chandler Morris, have struggled with turnovers. You guys remember that Colorado game?
Yeah.
They win that game if you don't throw 2 picks in the end zone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of happened all season. So I think turnovers the lack of physicality with the offensive line in the run game. And I don't think Kendall has done a great job at times with some of the plays he'll call when they get to the red zone. They love running a lot of jet sweeps with some of their slower receivers, some trick plays that just, if they work, it's clever, but if they don't, it's kind of like, why not just run something a little bit more simple? So I would say those are probably the three primary factors leading to what's going on.
I think the understatement of the segment was that, he didn't like the way everything was handled with his father, or no one did that was a part of that staff. Is there any frustration enough for him and his future there, or is that a locked-in position and give him another chance in the offseason to build more of what he wants to see on offense?
Based on my understanding right now, I think it would take, like I said, scoring 10 points against the Baylor, maybe getting shut out against Oklahoma, for I think Sonny to consider making a change like that. He is close to the Browse family. He vouched for him. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He vouched for him. So I don't think he would want to, kind of pull the plug in year one, because they are, I believe, 16th in total offense. So it's weird. They do things well. They're one of the fastest teams in the country in terms of tempo. They do put up a lot of yards, but they just haven't executed, in a consistent fashion. So I think there's a case that could be made like, hey, second year for Hoover. We'll maybe get some O-linemen in the transfer portal. So I would expect for him to be back. But like I said, if something drastic happens where you only score a touchdown or two against Baylor, then, hey, the noise is going to be extremely loud.
Steven, will you pick me up a Bluebonnet Battle T-shirt?
Man, if that's what you really want.
What has been the reaction among TCU fans? Because for Baylor fans, I think it's not been great.
That's basically the same thing. It's just kind of, look, I get it as a state flower. I'm not a native Texan. I don't know how much, pride y'all have in that being you guys state flower. But generally speaking, man, I don't think we should be calling Rivalry game. We shouldn't name them after a flower. You know what I mean? I like Rivalry. I thought it had tied into Christian histories of both programs. It was unique. So I would have loved to see them kind of keep that, or something that at least kind of acknowledges the fact they're both small private Christian institutions. But there's been a lot of memes and a lot of jokes. That trophy is heavy, man. So whoever wins, I don't know how they're going to carry it out of the stadium. It's like a shield and like a wooden placeholder. I tried to pick it up when they brought it to TCU earlier this week, and I'm just like, good luck. Those guys are stronger than me. So good luck to them.
Hey, Stephen, thank you for your time. Enjoy the game, Eamon Carter tomorrow. See, I keep on thinking it's just a flower. You just give somebody a bouquet of flowers.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Central Texas Plumbing Solutions, and Centex Roof Systems.
When the sun rises over Central Texas, we know there's work to be done. So if you need to dig, haul, cut, lift, mow, or anything in between, your local Bobcat dealers in Waco and Temple have all the equipment you'll need to get the job done right. We sell, we rent, and we've got parts and service to keep you up and running, no matter where the job takes you. There's work to do. Let's get it done.
What sets Hillcrest Dental Care apart is our vision of how we want to care for our patients to improve their health and their quality of life, whether it's the teeth, the gums, the bite, or the smile.
Because I didn't feel anything at all. When I woke up there, I had everything done. I go in the restaurant to eat, and the waitress said this, "You got new teeth." So they noticed them too. If you want something done that is good and permanent there, this is the place to go.
JJ Joe, Baylor radio color analyst, former Baylor quarterback. JJ, it's not the definition of insanity, but watching Baylor man, it is hard, and it does appear as if more and more, including today, that Dave Aranda it's got to be hard on him, but it's hard on the fan base, and it doesn't seem to be any glimmer of hope down the railroad tracks.
Yeah, hey, good to be on with you guys. Yeah, it's when you get in the loop, I'm not sure if I've seen a movie where you're in the loop. I think it was Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
with Bill Murray in it way back when, right? When he woke up, it was the same day, and that's kind of what each week seems like outside of maybe a couple of weeks. And Saturday was really no different. And Kansas State just kind of showed us, if you do this thing the right way, right, and you have a staff in place with some continuity, and you know exactly what your plan is on both sides. You recruit to it. You have a balanced roster. How you can stay competitive year after year. So I think watching what Kleiman is doing there was an education for all of us. And hopefully, man, we can get out of this loop. And the next two games, do we have the opportunity to win? Yes, we do. I mean, we could go to TCU and win. We could beat West Virginia at home. Those teams are West Virginia's not bad, but the movie we've been seeing would make us all think potentially that won't happen.
JJ, what did you think just defensively? I mean, you gave up 59 points. That wasn't all on the defense, though. I mean, that was obviously some of that was on the offense. But just defensively, where do you just kind of see the vision right now with this football team and where they are here 10 games into the year?
And I think that's it's for Aranda, man, to figure that out. One of the challenges making that leap from a defensive coordinator or assistant coach. Assistant coach for a long time, the head coach is being able to pull it all together and defining who you want to be. And I think Coach Aranda has a good vision of who he wants to be. The question is who you want to be. Have you married that up with your talent, and have you married that up with your coaching staff? The whole time I never was crazy. I liked that our offense was highly successful in 21. But I always felt, we're in the land of quarterbacks and speed, and to go counter to that, it could work. But I thought to go counter to that is a challenge, right? I think we struggled to coach speed. Even when Taekwon was here, we struggled to get him deep. We struggled to get him on anything other than a 13 in or out route, a 13-yard in or out route. And right now, I think we're seeing it is that two of the fastest players, the three of the fastest players we have on offense. We could probably count on our hand how many times they've touched the ball over the last few weeks. And I would say those three fastest people on our offense are probably Jonah Burton, Monterey Baldwin, and Richard Reese. Now, we can say all we want to say about Richard Reese, but probably those three guys are probably – and I take that back. And what's the young kid named number 18? He's pretty fast, too. That they moved to running back.
Jordan Neighbors. Jordan Neighbors.
Yeah, Jordan Neighbors. Those four kids can really run. Now, Neighbors is young. Jonah Burton is young. But we have a hard time getting the ball. That doesn't happen in the era of football that I'm used to, where your swiftest players, you have a hard time getting them the ball. And we seemingly had a hard time getting those kids the ball on a consistent basis this year.
JJ, if you don't mind, we have Ricky on too on Wednesdays, and he's down there on the field, and you guys travel. You're with the team enough. What do you see? Is it a beaten down team in your opinion?
That would be a great question for Ricky on Wednesday. I mean, he's right there with them.
Okay.
I'll go down to the pregame smoke, but I thought really to start the game, I thought on Saturday, I actually felt life. I felt like these guys are ready to compete. And I don't think it was just because of the first drive. I thought Kansas State did a good job on their first drive, but I didn't get a feeling that our guys were, lethargic on defense that first drive. I just felt like Kansas State was good, had a good plan coming in, and executed it pretty swiftly. So, that'll be a great question for Rick.
But before we let you go, JJ, thoughts on TCU? Obviously, a big rivalry game. Not good luck there lately, especially the end of last year, heading up to Fort Worth. But they're not quite what they were a year ago. What have you seen from TCU, and just what are your thoughts heading into this game?
Yeah, I've seen the freshmen. I like the freshman quarterback. They're struggling like we are. I thought they played good against Texas. I mean, Texas jumped out on them, and they made a run back. on Texas. I thought that was pretty interesting. So they showed fight. But it'll be, I think, a normal rivalry game. Both teams just trying to get a win. Baylor trying to make sure they don't go to a bowl. I would say the only thing I think, Greg, that I don't like about it is this new name they have for it, Smoak.
Oh,
is this Bluebonnet? I'm trying to think, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I know I had someone contact me. I'm going to discuss it with them tonight and do an interview for maybe sometime this week. But I don't even know where that came from. And you hear that maybe the TCU did not want anything rivalry. I don't know the truth. I really don't. Not sure I care. But that does seem to be pretty soft.
It does. And when I saw it, I'm thinking, that made me think back to the Bluebonnet Bowl.
Yeah, that was a hell of a bowl game.
But
yeah,
it really was. But there's nothing Bluebonnet, nothing about the game between TCU and Baylor makes me think Bluebonnets. I guess outside of maybe a little purple in TCU's uniform. That's about it, I guess.
You know, it's always a rousing success when immediately afterwards everybody's pointing the finger as to whose idea it was to come up with the name, you know?
Exactly.
It's like that Spider-Man meme. You know, it's like, no, you.
Yeah.
Hey,
exactly.
There's nothing, it's just, there's so nothing intimidating about it or exciting. Like, for a football fan, like, if you just took the name of something and said, hey, like, for example, the Red River Shootout, like, if you were watching a Western, you'd watch that movie, right? But if you if you told me I was going to watch the Bluebonnet Battle, I would think you're going to take me to an HGTV show about flowers.
Yeah.
You're right, man. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's gone over very well. JJ,
I hope it doesn't stick. Let me put. This is one of the things. I hope it does not stick. Let's put it that way.
Thank you, man. We appreciate you coming on. I know it's not easy. Thank you, JJ Joe, color radio color analyst.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and more. New bikes arrived and are waiting for you to test yourself, compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power, and with indoor cycling classes every day. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and a tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman, assistant junior pro Kennup, adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com, or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people. good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Three Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Furno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
All right, let's do some score updates in this segment. Then we're going to go back up to Fort Worth to Amon Carter Stadium and hear from Darby Brown yet again. BYU and Oklahoma were tied at 17 apiece at the halftime. The Cougars driving deep into OU territory, and Billy Bowman Jr. with a pick and went almost 100 yards on the return for a touchdown. 24-17, Oklahoma leads that game with just under 6 minutes left in the third quarter.
It was 100 yards.
It was 100 yards.
100-yard pick six, so BYU with a chance to take the lead, gives up a 100-yard pick six. So, yeah, that's one that's going to be a tough pill to swallow for them if this game doesn't go back around the other way.
Billy Bowman, I think, who's a great athlete, played at Denton Ryan, probably at about the 30-yard line was like, somebody tackle me. Somebody. Hey, here's the schedule. Garrett, do you have the Big 12 schedule for today? This is the game. That's the only game in progress. You also will have Cincinnati at 1:30 on ESPN Plus playing West Virginia. Cincinnati with their first Big 12 win last week.
No. ESPNU. There's only one team that's the official team of ESPN Plus.
Cincinnati, no, it's ESPN Plus.
It's on ESPNU because
it says ESPN Plus. Okay.
There it says ESPNU. So.
Okay.
Well, maybe it is. Yeah.
All right. The Baylor TCU game at 2:30 is on ESPN Plus. Baylor, I think it's the fifth consecutive game on that. Oklahoma State, Houston. Oklahoma State with they got spanked at Orlando. Playing in Houston, ESPN2 at 3. UCF coming off that really impressive win. Texas Tech with a win that maybe not a lot of people thought would happen in Lawrence. Both teams playing for a bowl-eligible victory at 5-5 in Lubbock at 4 on FS2, and Kansas State KU 6 o'clock tonight on FS1 in that rivalry. And then Texas and Iowa State, UT trying to clinch a spot in the Big 12 championship game, 7 o'clock on the Big Fox against the Cyclones, who are a surprise team in the Big 12 at 5-2, and that game in Ames.
All right, so basically BYU's trying to play spoiler, and that's what you can look for, as far as that game goes. As far as the rest of them, just looking at that, but let me pull that back up here. Cincinnati, West Virginia, that's a pride thing as much as anything, and that's a Neil Brown trying to just keep his job as cool as possible game. For Cincinnati, there's not really, just you win what you can while you can, but there's no postseason. Baylor, TCU, we've talked about. Oklahoma State really needs to right the ship, but Houston and Dana really need a win too to make a bowl game. So Houston's playing for a bowl game at home to maintain their bowl hopes, and Oklahoma State's trying to stay in the Big 12 title game. Like, they're still in there as of today, even though they got blown out, but if they lose today, then all bets are off. So they need to win. UCF and Texas Tech, winners are going to a bowl game. The losers got to win their last game to go to a bowl game, so that's a huge game for both. Kansas State, obviously you want to spoil each other's seasons as much as you possibly can. You're both 7-3, so somebody will have a leg up and head-to-head, so that's bragging rights. And K-State's still got an outside shot at the Big 12 title. And then, Iowa State can be everybody's favorite team if they can upset Texas and crush their playoff and Big 12 hopes. More so the playoff than the Big 12 hopes. But, there's a lot on the line in these games.
Maryland is making it very interesting against the Wolverines, America's team. 23-17, midway through the third quarter. That was at one point Maryland was getting blown out. That game now was 7-28, 23-17 Michigan. Alabama cooking Chattanooga 58-10. Miami just had a long run. It appears it's going to be under replay, but 27-23 on a long touchdown run by Fletcher for 55 yards. Penn State 20, Rutgers 6. Early fourth, Ole Miss 28-3 over UL Monroe. Early fourth, and then also Tulane rolling past Florida Atlantic 24-8 in that game with 9 minutes to left in the fourth quarter. Tulane trying to get to that American Conference Championship. UTSA also a part of that mix. And SMU was winning, last I looked, in that game down in Memphis.
It's tied.
Tied now?
Man, see, I'm telling you, like, remember we were talking about this the other day? I brought this up when we were doing our picks about how there's a feeling like Memphis could pull the upset here, and I didn't quite understand it. But then we talked about it with Taylor McCargan. He's like, no, here they are. Yeah, it's wild.
A&M 24, Abilene Christian 10. That game, 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter with Elijah Robinson, formerly on the Matt Rule staff at Baylor, as the interim head coach after Jimbo Fisher was fired I guess it was on Sunday. All right, we have a lot more to get to, including hearing from Ricky Thompson, but Darby Brown around the corner as well from Amon Carter Stadium. Thank you for your time. As always, we'll take you up until 2 o'clock, and this is Game Day Live.
You want it before Black Friday? We've got it before Black Friday. Black Friday savings start now at Du Bois Furniture. Save up to 60% off store-wide. Plus, save an additional $100 off for every $1,000 spent now at Du Bois Furniture.
I've known Tony now for about 9 years, which is about the time I've been a minister here at the Church of Christ in Groesbeck. I've known his son for a while, but I did not know his son was now moving into the business with him. And it was great interacting with him. He's a young man, and he's going to do his dad proud with this business. This is just a great roof. It's going to do us good for a long time. And we're glad to have Syntex Roof Systems involved in making this possible for us.
God bless Texas.
In Waco, Texas, we value education. We're proud of Baylor University, McLennan Community College, and TSTC. At Jeff Hunter Toyota, we share these Waco values. It's how we serve our customers better and provide the highest quality service. In Waco, this is who we are, and this is what we drive. Shop Jeff Hunter Toyota. Toyota quality, Waco values.
Get our best Black Friday mattress deals now at Du Bois Furniture. Elevate your sleep comfort to a whole new level and save up to $800 on select Stearns & Foster Tempur-Pedic and Sealy adjustable sets now at Du Bois Furniture.
Download the KWTX First Alert Weather app, sponsored by Capital Farm Credit.
Ricky Thompson, former Baylor wide receiver, sideline reporter for Baylor Radio with us on 365 Sports. And Ricky, your thoughts about what now? Because there's 2 games left. Obviously, TCU coming up Saturday, and a team that they've struggled beating even when they've been much better. Charlie Brewer got them once, obviously 61-58, but it's been few and far between. What now? And do you consider TCU a rival?
Sure. I think so. 90 miles apart. Nobody likes anybody involved in that series either way. So, sure, I think it is. And hopefully that alone will bring some inspiration to a team late in the season who, frankly, doesn't have a lot left as far as goals. Bowl's out of the question now for sure. Probably has been for a couple of weeks. And coming off a game, which, by the way, K-State, I'm still not so sure they're not the best team in the league. That's a really good football team. I think when you give somebody like that 3 scores, you're in big trouble. But, yes, I think this game's a rivalry. I think it'll be treated that way. And with that, that always gives you some optimism, because how many times have we seen a game like this that doesn't go exactly like you think it should? And happens more often than not. So I think with that, that's what you've got to put into these players, and hopefully they put it into themselves, that this is an important game, 90 miles apart, somebody you're going to play every year from here on out, no matter how this league and the schedule presents itself going forward. You're going to play TCU every year.
Ricky, you've been in all kind of different rivalry type games, or your season at the end and playing for different things. For Baylor, they're playing for pride right now and a play spoiler. Against TCU in particular, if they do win this game, TCU can't go to a bowl. So they have to win their next 2 to be able to do that. How much of that would be a motivating factor?
Well, Yeah, I think it's a factor. I don't think there's anything that Baylor fans would like much more at this point in the season than at least knocking TCU out of a bowl game. I'd like it personally. I think it'd be great. So I hadn't thought about that particular motivation, Paul, but I think, and I bet that there's been discussion of that in some regard on the river as they practice this week. And yeah, that would be a really nice way to end a disappointing season, to knock those guys out of a bowl game. And I tell you what, if they can, again, just push these games into the second half, you never know. And they're going to have to play mistake-free. Obviously, TCU runs an offense in the spread with Bryles that has given us some fits. We have finally put 3 corners in the game, have a corner on that inside slot receiver, which makes all the difference in the world. In fact, last week, guys, we had 3 freshman cornerbacks in the game at the same time. Not redshirt freshmen, true freshmen at the same time.
Ricky, isn't that kind of, I guess, one of the areas that you would look at with what kid Aranda, we run it back and see what can possibly be done next year? The young defensive backs. I know that, with the portal era, though, it's hard to really solidify anything and feel like you can have everybody back. But the tight end room, would that be another group? How would you kind of look at, if you were to take away the positives from this year and say, like, here's what we can build around if it were to stay as is, knowing full well it's not exactly how it works, but would you say the secondary and the tight ends, where would you kind of look to start building?
Well, I would absolutely start secondary-wise. I think these kids have proven they can play. We've seen some freshman mistakes in secondary, which when you're 18 years old, you're going to get beat. I've seen a lot of senior fifth-year quarterbacks get beat too. So, yes, I think that's something that you really build on, and I think that's where this NIL mess comes in, guys. I think that hopefully that's already started, that process of retaining these guys, make sure they're coming back, and I would fully expect that Baylor jumps into the portal pretty heavy this year. I think, quarterback, you've got a couple of guys back there. I think you're always looking. I do think Blake is a kid that, considering what he's been through this year, has played very well, and I'm proud of the way he played. But the tight end group, even with Dabney leaving, I think's got a chance to be really good. Receiver, I think there's some work to be done there. There's some kids there that can play. They just hopefully will develop further. And obviously it's hurt for Keytron Jackson to be out the last couple of weeks. But there are some things to build on. I think overall you just build on the fact that a lot of your better players are just kids. They're young guys, and you've got, 9 seniors that are really playing. That's not many.
Ricky, do you notice anything with the coaching staff different given how tense things are going to be around the next couple of weeks?
Not dramatically. I think that's one thing about Aranda. You don't see a lot of up and down with him. I will tell you, I thought post-game at K-State, you could really tell he was disappointed. I think he was disappointed in the way they played, a little bit disappointed. I don't know so much effort, I think maybe, but you could really get the feeling with Coach Aranda that one hit him pretty hard. I don't think he expected that. I'm talking about the way the game went school-wise. I don't think he expected that at all. So that's something that the coaches have to overcome too, because I tell you, that does permeate through a team when they can tell a coaching staff is having trouble staying motivated. But I don't think that's going to be the case, and I'm really glad it's TCU and not somebody else at this point that would not be considered rivalry at all. And I'm not knocking Iowa State or Kansas or somebody like that, but the fact that you're playing a team that you don't like very much, I think the timing's pretty good.
Ricky, I don't know if you've been asked this before. We asked JJ. He wasn't thrilled with this new name of the rivalry between Baylor and TCU. I'm sure you've seen what they're going to call this. What was your reaction when you saw that?
Probably the same as everyone else. I didn't like it, but I didn't pick it. So it is what it is. I don't know how in the world they came up with it, but you know, I don't think it's a bad idea to have a name for the game and to have some kind of trophy, whatever it may be. The name is what it is. If we win, I don't care what they call it.
There you go.
Yeah. We wouldn't have picked that one.
Ricky, thank you very much for your time. Baylor Radio sideline reporter Ricky Thompson, former Baylor wide receiver, with us on 365 Sports.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Central Texas Plumbing Solutions, and Centex Roof Systems.
When it's your time to start driving, stay focused. Don't let yourself get distracted by your friends, your radio, and especially not your phone. It only takes a moment of distraction to change your life forever. Make a pledge to yourself and your parents. Don't text and drive. Stay focused on the road. It could be the decision that saves your life. This message is brought to you by your friends at Tow King.
A moment of distraction can change your life forever.
Stay focused on the road.
Don't text and drive.
Hi, my name is Randy Crook. I'm the president of Waco Goodfellas. Our organization strives to ensure that every kid has a chance to believe in Santa Claus. Over the last 30 years, we've touched the lives of over 5,000 children, each one leaving away with a gift, a smile, and the belief that kindness still exists. This year, we're hoping to raise $10,000 to deliver a piece of Christmas to hundreds of homes across Waco, not only to fill the hearts of the kids, but the family as a whole.
The wait is over for Black Friday deals on all new 2023 Ram 2500s in stock. Huge discounts like $18,000 off MSRP on limited mega cabs, $15,000 off MSRP on Laramie diesel crew cabs, and $12,000 off the Workhorse Cummins diesel tradesman. Don't miss deals like this, they won't last long. Going on now at the Black Friday sales event only at MacHikeDodge.com.
Get that great Mac Hike feeling.
All right, we're about 45 minutes away from kickoff at Amon Carter Stadium in Fort Worth. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Garrett Ross here running the mothership, and back up to Fort Worth with Darby Brown, KWTX and the CW. Darby, thanks for your time. Now things starting to fill up a little bit.
Yeah, starting to fill up a little bit. Fans are making their way inside the stadium. Players are out here on the field. Baylor's wearing white and yellow combination today, which I don't know if I've seen that a whole lot from them. And just getting going out here. So things are coming together.
Yeah, it looks like a little Green Bay Packer vibe they've got going behind you
North
there.
North Dakota State.
Yeah, North Dakota State, Darby. What do you think for Baylor the key to this game is going to be early?
Get out to a good start. I mean, and then kind of try to maintain it, obviously. Kansas State on offense, at that game, on offense, they did what they wanted to. Defense, not so much. You got to do it on both sides of the ball there early and then try to maintain. I think if they can, they've proven if they get out to a good start, that's where they're going to play their best.
Darby, you want to give us maybe the prediction, knowing that this team is hard to predict other than the fact that they have not won in a long time?
Yeah, I think I need to move here for a second. They're about to kick a football in right in my business here. So I'm going to shift a little bit. Anyways, we are in the danger zone when you're out here in the sidelines. But I think that I honestly don't know what you asked me because I was fighting for my life there.
I don't understand why. I mean, it's a violent game covering football. So if you had to make a prediction, and we don't do that a lot, ask you to do that a lot, but do you think Baylor, give us a prediction on what you think. I said earlier, like 30-16 TCU. Hell, I don't know how you predict Baylor to win because of what we've seen.
Yeah, I think TCU is going to win by a couple scores. I think that's probably my prediction here. But, as I kind of said earlier, rivalry game, there is a different energy to it. You never know really what could happen today. So that's my prediction, though. I think TCU by at least a couple touchdowns.
Last thing for you. You get to watch or listen to some of the players when they're available during the season. Who, in your opinion, has probably been the most steadfast and kind of stayed focused during these very difficult first 10 games of the year.
I've really been impressed with Blake Shapen every time I've been able to talk with him this year. I feel like he has really grown as far as his leadership. And I think when he says things about how they still believe in themselves and, he just is bringing a different leadership, I think he believes everything that he tells us, right? I think it's coming from a very genuine place. And so I've been very impressed with him. I saw him coming out here warming up, kind of joking with Sean Bell. He was even interacting with some fans. He seems like no matter kind of where things are going, he's going to be like this, which is what you need in a quarterback. So I've been impressed with him, and I think it's helped. His play has improved this year, whether they've gotten the wins or not. So
it was good to see you Tuesday night with Baylor women winning that game against fourth-ranked Utah. Great win for Nikki Collin and company. Thanks for your time, Darby. We appreciate it. Post-game coverage, of course, throughout the day and the weekend on KWTX. Darby, thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Darby Brown, KWTX in the CW with us. Chad Botherine on occasion also has been either home or on the road at McLean Stadium and elsewhere. When we come back, we wrap it up with our final thoughts. Game Day Live right here on the CW.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and more. New bikes arrived and are waiting for you to test yourself, compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power, and with indoor cycling classes every day. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and a tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman, assistant junior pro Kenna, adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com, or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Three Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Burno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
By the way, there's a game in the Pac-12, a note of interest. Arizona early on leading Utah 7-0. And our good friend Jason Shear, Wildcat Authority, put this out there. Last time you'll be seeing this at Arizona Stadium, which is the Pac-12 logo. Next time they have a home game, it will be with the Big 12 logo, along with Arizona State, Colorado, and also Utah. Craig, we start with you. We have discussed this game. I don't want to go down into the rabbit hole or go hamster wheel of this is a bad team. Who has to play well today other than Shapen? Who else today has to play well for Baylor to have an opportunity?
I mean, I don't have an exact answer for you because I think for this team, there's nothing that's like real X's and O's like that. I think it's just like somebody just has to play. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think it's like, well, if the offensive line does, I think somebody has to play well to make plays, and I don't really care who that is. But, I mean, yeah, obviously Blake Shapen needs to play well. I think the offensive line really needs to play well to allow the offense to do anything that they would like to be able to do. So the O-line is definitely an area that you look once again just to be able to get going what you would like to be able to get going. And then, you know, I hate to be so vague in general, but you need the defense to get stops. I mean, it really is that simple to me. It's the basics for this team at this point.
I think they have to have at least 2 turnovers today or something in the special teams that's like a return or a block. Paul?
Yeah, that's how they've won games this year. Like against UCF, it was the scoop and score. Against Cincinnati, it was the weird kickoff return scenario where the fumble. They need one of those things to happen. They also just need to keep TCU out of rhythm and in the funk that they've been in, and that just means big kind of wild, crazy plays. So I would say that they need to get something out of the wide receiver position, but they've been so banged up. That means that somebody who may have used to be a walk-on's got to step up. You know, like there's a lot of those things going on there. So we'll see.
By the way, Oklahoma missed a field goal, still tied 24 with BYU. Still a lot of time left in the fourth quarter. Caden Jenkins, we brought up NIL yesterday, the story Colt Barber had on Sikkim365.com in the premium section. Also his note earlier, this is my home, respect it. Caden Jenkins, the freshman defensive back, was getting looked. A lot of people interested in him. And again, yesterday the story about the NIL. Garrett, what was your question about Caden Jenkins and the tweet with the kickoff 45 minutes away?
I think it's like, why are you on social media at this point? Like, I don't understand the priorities and everything. Like, that can wait. That's something that can wait till after the game. It just seems like that's a distraction, an unnecessary distraction. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's something you have preset to go out, but that's just, I don't understand that mindset.
All right, Craig, a prediction. I say 30-16 TCU.
Yeah, I mean, that's good news on Caden Jenkins. You know, we'll see, though. I think, you know, they need might be better. If you go get blown out by TCU, maybe the Caden Jenkins news would have been better reserved for, like, Sunday.
Right,
but we'll see on that. I don't remember what my final score prediction was on the website, but I got TCU by, like, a couple scores.
Yeah,
I think like 10 or 14 points, I have them as winners.
Yeah, same here for me. I think, you know, and I think Baylor will keep this is going to be a weird one where I don't think TCU is going to go out and run away with it. Again, they're a very blah team playing another, like maybe even more blah team right now at this point in the season, but they are a little bit better, and I think that they probably pull away towards the end of this game.
All right, Garrett, minute left here. Game Day Live, we're going to wrap it up here in just a moment. We were discussing some of the memories in the last 10 or 12, 13 years, Baylor and TCU. One we didn't bring up that was also a sore spot. Baylor with that team in 2021 that was so good, goes up to Fort Worth. Chandler Morris looks like a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback and has not done anything since that time. That was another one of those where Baylor was the favorite, a better team, and they couldn't get the job done. In Amon Carter up in Fort Worth. Kickoff just after 2:30. Game is on ESPN+. We'll be back on the air. Paul Catalina with the triple option at 1 o'clock on 365 Sports. Coverage of the game today in Fort Worth throughout the day on KWTX. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And, we will have Jeremy Fudge on Monday's show that we do at 3:30 to discuss the latest in the revamp and also the acceleration of Baylor and the NIL program for the football team. For Garrett Ross, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, Darby Brown, Josh Young, and many others, I'm David Smoak. Have a great day. This is Game Day Live.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
Hello, I'm Sharon Kerr, and I recommend Tony Lenore and Syntex Roof System to all my friends, my family, and clients.
When it came time to replace our roof, making an investment in your home. And when you're doing something like that, you want to make sure it's somebody that's got high character, which made Syntex Roof Systems the obvious choice.
Well, I had a hail claim,
And Syntex Roof Systems made a stressful situation into a very easy situation.
To your hometown roofer, and we approve this message.
The wait is over for Black Friday deals on all new 2023 Ram 2500s in stock. Huge discounts like $18,000 off MSRP on limited mega cabs, $15,000 off MSRP on Laramie diesel crew cabs, and $12,000 off the Workhorse Cummins diesel tradesman. Don't miss deals like this, they won't last long. Going on now at the Black Friday sales event only at MacHikeDodge.com.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solution.